Imagine this. You stand at the edge of a vast, lightless ocean. The waves are not water, but shadows, undulating with a hunger that defies comprehension. You clutch a lantern, the sum of all your achievements, desires, and beliefs, and its glow shrinks before the abyss. This is not a dream. It is the moment you realize your light cannot illuminate the darkness, because the darkness is alive. It breathes in the spaces between your triumphs, feeds on the silence after laughter, and whispers the question you've always feared. What if everything you've ever wanted is a distraction from the truth? You've been told life is a puzzle to solve, a ladder to climb, a story to author. But what if it's none of these? What if existence is a riddle with no answer, a melody that dissolves into dissonance the moment you grasp its tune? Consider the paradox. The more you strive for happiness, the more it slips through your fingers like smoke. The tighter you cling to love, purpose, or meaning, the more they corrode into emptiness. Schopenhauer called this the will, a blind, insatiable force that propels all life into perpetual craving. You are not the master of this will. You are its puppet. Pause. Look around. The world insists you must want to exist. But why? Why does the act of being demand such relentless effort? You wake, you labor, you yearn, you regret. Each day you stitch together a patchwork of distractions, ambition, pleasure, even suffering, to avoid facing the void beneath your feet. Schopenhauer's genius was to rip away the tapestry of illusions. Beneath it lies a single, searing insight. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a weight to be carried. And the weight is heavier when you pretend it isn't there. What does it mean that your deepest desires are not yours? That the hunger for more love, more power, more life, is not a flaw in your character, but the engine of existence itself. Think of the addict chasing a high that never satisfies, the artist tormented by visions they cannot fully realize, the lover who conflates possession with connection. These are not failures, they are obedience. The will does not care if you win or lose. It only demands that you keep running, chasing, needing. And when you finally collapse, exhausted, it mocks you with a new craving, the craving for oblivion. But here is the cruelest twist. The will is not your enemy. It is your essence. To resist it is to resist being itself. You are a flicker of consciousness trapped in a storm of its own making. Schopenhauer's philosophy does not offer solace. It offers a mirror. Stare into it, and you might see the grotesque beauty of your predicament. The way suffering and desire are braided into the DNA of existence. You might also see the faintest crack in the mirror's surface. A question. If the will is all-powerful, why does it allow you to know it? What dormant power lies in the act of seeing the prison that binds you? Do not turn away. The next time you laugh, ask yourself, is this joy or defiance? The next time you weep, wonder, is this pain or clarity? The answer matters less than the act of asking. Schopenhauer's darkness is not a destination. It is a threshold. Beyond it lies a truth so radical it could unravel everything or nothing. Are you ready to cross? You've glimpsed the abyss in the mirror. Now feel it move within you. The will is not a metaphor. It is the raw, electric pulse beneath your skin. The part of you that clenches your jaw in traffic, that craves another drink at midnight, that whispers more, even as your bones ache with exhaustion. Schopenhauer understood what you're now beginning to suspect. The will is not your servant. It is your sovereign. And like a tyrant, it rules through deception. It convinces you that your cravings are yours, that your struggles are meaningful, that the rat race is a pilgrimage. But look closer. Every victory is a temporary truce. Every desire fulfilled births a new hunger. This is not a flaw in the system. It is the system, Consider the paradox of modernity. You live in an age of unprecedented comfort, yet anxiety and despair proliferate like weeds through concrete. Why? Because the will thrives on lack. It is starvation masquerading as appetite. The more you feed it, through wealth, validation, even spiritual seeking, the hungrier it becomes. Carl Jung saw this clearly. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unconsciousness of its parents. Substitute society for parents, and you grasp the horror. Culture is a factory of distractions, churning out myths of progress, romance, and self-actualization to keep the will sedated. You scroll, shop, and swipe not because you're weak, but because you're obedient. The system works too well. But let's descend deeper. Schopenhauer's genius lay in his refusal to romanticize suffering. For him, existence is a pendulum swinging between pain and boredom. When you're not suffering from lack, you're suffocating from excess. The nausea of satiation. The void left by achieved goals. Nietzsche mocked him for this, championing the will to power as a counterforce. Yet both philosophers touch a nerve. The human psyche is a battleground between submission and rebellion. You felt this in your own life. The thrill of a promotion curdles into dread of incompetence. A lover's embrace leaves you lonelier afterward. Even art, a supposed refuge, becomes a mirror for your restlessness. Schopenhauer would nod grimly. Art is the highest form of hope, he wrote. But hope is the most treacherous of vices. And what of identity? You cling to your personality, your virtues, your traumas, as if they define you. But Schopenhauer exposes this as another illusion. Yourself is just the will's latest costume, a persona stitched together from fear, memory, and borrowed ideals. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that existence precedes essence, that you are condemned to freedom. Schopenhauer's darker truth is that freedom is a myth. You are a marionette whose strings are made of your own desires. Cut one, and another grows in its place. Viktor Frankl, who found meaning in Auschwitz, insisted that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Yet Schopenhauer would laugh bitterly. What is attitude but another mask for the will? Even your defiance is obedience in disguise. Here's the cruelest twist. The will is not unique to you. It is the universal force that spins galaxies and ignites neurons. Schopenhauer saw it in the predator's hunt, the lover's obsession, the artist's frenzy. All are expressions of the same inscrutable hunger. Aldous Huxley glimpsed this in Brave New World, where society drowns the will in pleasure and stability. But Huxley's nightmare is your reality. The soma tablets of consumerism, social media, and endless entertainment are not conspiracies. They're concessions. Civilizations are built not to elevate humanity, but to domesticate the will. You are both the farmer and the livestock. And yet, there's a whisper in the dark, a contradiction. If the will is omnipotent, why does it allow you to perceive its tyranny? Schopenhauer offers no comfort here, only a clue. The will's greatest vulnerability is its capacity for self-awareness. To see the prison is not to escape it, but to realize that the jailer is yourself. This is the hidden problem. You are not fighting fate, society, or your flaws. You are fighting the very essence of what makes you alive. But what if there's a way to turn the will against itself? To weaponize consciousness? The next section will drag you into the abyss's belly and show you how to strike a match. You think you're awake, but your eyes are still closed. The will's true power lies in its invisibility. It doesn't control you by force. It seduces you into complicity. Every morning, you wake to an algorithm-curated feed of lives more vibrant than yours, relationships more enviable, bodies more sculpted, minds more enlightened. You call this connection. Schopenhauer would call it pandering to the will. Each scroll, each double tap, is an act of worship at the altar of lack. You are not merely comparing yourself to others. You are training your brain to crave what it cannot have, to mistake stimulus for substance. The result? A dopamine drip that keeps you docile, a prisoner of your own hunger. Consider the neuroscience of craving. Your brain's reward system, a cluster of neurons deep in your skull, doesn't distinguish between survival and self-destruction. A sugary snack, a gambling win, a viral post, all light up the same pathways. The will hijacks this machinery, turning fleeting pleasures into existential necessities. You binge a series until dawn, not because you enjoy it, but because stopping would mean facing the silence. You chase promotions not for the title, but to delay the question, is this all there is? Schopenhauer's diagnosis is clinical. The will is like a snake that bites its own tail, feeding on its own pain. But the personal is always political. Zoom out, and the pattern repeats in grotesque symmetry. Economies thrive on planned obsolescence, politics on manufactured outrage, religions on guilt and redemption. Societies are not built to fulfill desires. They're designed to produce them. The 24-hour news cycle, the cult of productivity, the wellness industrial complex, all are rituals to keep the will inflamed. Huxley's Soma has been replaced by mindfulness apps and microdosing, but the function is the same. Anesthesia for the soul. Even rebellion is commodified. Your anti-consumerist tote bag, your quiet quitting hashtag. They're just new flavors of the same old craving. Here's the trap. The more you resist, the tighter the snare. Declutter your life, and the void screams louder. Meditate to silence the mind, and the will floods the silence with self-judgment. You've seen this in others. The activist who becomes a zealot. The minimalist who fetishizes austerity. Schopenhauer warns that asceticism is not escape, but surrender. By renouncing the world, you only prove the will's dominion. You are still dancing to its tune, even if the melody is in a minor key. And what of love? The most human of emotions is also the will's sharpest blade. You yearn to merge with another, to dissolve the loneliness that haunts your species. But relationships become transactional, proof of worth, distractions from mortality, vessels for unmet childhood needs. The more you cling, the more love curdles into possession. Schopenhauer compared human intimacy to hedgehogs huddling for warmth. Get too close and you prick each other. Move too far and you freeze. The will wins either way, yet the deepest consequence is existential. The will doesn't just shape your choices, it erases the possibility of true choice. You think you're navigating life, but you're a character in a story written by your cravings. Every decision is a post hoc rationalization. You quit your job not because you chose freedom, but because the will demanded novelty. You stay in a toxic relationship not out of love, but because the will fears emptiness. Even your suffering is not your own. It's a script rehearsed by generations, a neural groove worn deep by evolution. But here's the fissure in the machine. The will's tyranny depends on your ignorance. The moment you see the matrix code, the instant you recognize cravings as impersonal forces, not your true self, the system glitches. Schopenhauer offers no exit, but he gifts you a weapon. Awareness. To know you're a puppet is to tug the strings with intention. To see the trap is to begin, however faintly, to step outside it. The rebellion begins not by changing the world, but by dismantling the prison in your mind. Rebellion begins where obedience ends, and obedience ends when you realize you've been your own jailer all along. The first act of war is to stop feeding the beast. Diogenes, the ancient cynic, understood this. He lived in a wine barrel, masturbated in public, and told Alexander the Great to stand out of my sunlight. His message: reject the world's rules, and the world loses its grip. But Diogenes wasn't a dropout. He was a saboteur. By refusing wealth, status, and even dignity, he starved the will of its fuel. Schopenhauer would approve. To rebel is not to fight the system. It's to realize the system is fighting itself. Yet defiance alone is a trap. Nietzsche's Übermensch, the overman who creates values in a godless world, offers a darker path. Embrace the will, he urges. Dance with the chaos. Weaponize your passions and forge meaning from the struggle. Nietzsche called this amor fati, love of fate. But here's the paradox. To love fate is to reject regret, to see every wound as a lesson and every betrayal as a teacher. The will thrives on resistance. Meet it with acceptance, and its power crumbles. This is alchemy, transforming the lead of suffering into the gold of wisdom. Zen masters take a quieter route. They sit, breathe, and watch cravings rise and dissolve like smoke. The obstacle is the path, they say. By observing the will without judgment, you dismantle its authority. It's like fighting a shadow. The more you chase it, the larger it grows. But stand still, and it shrinks to nothing. Viktor Frankl, survivor of Auschwitz, glimpsed this in the camps. Those who found meaning in suffering, whether through love, art, or sheer defiance, were the ones who endured. They didn't conquer the will. They transcended it by refusing to let it define them. But how do you practice this rebellion in a world wired for distraction? Start by weaponizing paradox. The will craves extremes, asceticism or excess, hope or despair. Refuse both. When anger surges, don't suppress it or unleash it. Watch it. When desire claws at your ribs, neither indulge nor resist. Say with the Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, "Hello, my little craving. I see you there." This is psychological jujitsu. Use the will's momentum against itself. Art is your ally. Schopenhauer called music the direct language of the will, but all art is subversive. The painter who stares at a blank canvas confronts the same void you face each morning. Create anyway. Write the poem that terrifies you. Compose the song that cracks your heart open. In creation, you hijack the will's energy, redirecting it from consumption to expression. Even destruction can be art. The punk rocker smashing a guitar, the poet burning their manuscript, these are rituals of liberation. They scream, "I am more than my cravings." The ultimate rebellion, though, is a death, not of the body, but of the ego, the false self that feeds on validation. The Sufi mystics call this dying before you die. Strip away your titles, your bank account, your Instagram persona, and ask, what remains? That raw, unnameable essence is your true self. It doesn't crave. It is 0.00. Schopenhauer glimpsed this in The Good Genius, who renounces the will, finding peace in asceticism. But you need not take vows. Just realize that every time you choose presence over distraction, silence over noise, you starve the will and awaken the genius within. This is not a one-time revolution. It's a daily coup. You will falter. The will is cunning, and the world is its collaborator. But each time you catch yourself clutching the lantern, each time you choose the abyss over the light, you claim a sliver of freedom. And now, the final truth awaits. Not in the heavens or the self-help manuals, but in the raw, aching heart of existence itself. You fought the will, starved it, befriended it. Now stand still and let it devour you. The ultimate truth is not that life is suffering, but that suffering is the only thread sturdy enough to weave meaning from the void. Schopenhauer's genius was to see existence as a Mobius strip. There is no other side. Pain and pleasure, hope and despair, creation and destruction, all are facets of the same primordial force. To reject any part of it is to reject the whole. This is the sublime horror. The world is not a puzzle to solve, but a poem to endure. Its beauty lies not in answers, but in the raw, aching cadence of its contradictions. Think of the Buddhist monk who smiles as his body burns, the Stoic who greets loss with gratitude, the artist who paints her grief in vibrant hues. These are not acts of resignation, but of participation. They've grasped what Schopenhauer called the turning point of genius. To see the will not as an enemy, but as the raw material of transcendence. Suffering is not a flaw. It's the friction that sparks consciousness. Without it, you'd be a blade that never sharpens, a star that never ignites. But here's the revelation that fractures reality. Liberation comes not from escaping the will, but from becoming it. When you stop resisting the storm and realize you are the storm, the struggle collapses. This is the paradox of surrender. The will's hunger cannot be satisfied because it is infinite, but it can be transmuted. Every craving, every fear, every flicker of doubt is not a chain, but a frequency. Tune into it, and you become a conduit for the universe's raw energy. Schopenhauer glimpsed this in music. When you lose yourself in a symphony, you're not escaping reality. You're merging with the will's essence. The same applies to love, grief, even despair. These states dissolve the illusion of separation. For a moment, you're not a fragment, but the whole. This is why tragedy moves us more deeply than joy. It strips away the ego, leaving only the raw pulse of existence. And what of death? The will's final trick is to make you fear its absence. But death is not an end. It's the moment the wave remembers it is the ocean. Schopenhauer's bleak vision contains a hidden mercy. If life is suffering, then death is not a loss, but a release into the uncarved void. Yet even this is a false binary. You already are the void. The self is a ripple on its surface. The final truth is this: existence is a mirror. You've spent lifetimes running from the reflection, polishing the glass to see something, anything, other than the abyss behind your eyes. But the abyss is not your enemy. It is your true face. Schopenhauer's philosophy is not a dirge, but a lullaby. It whispers, "Stop fighting, stop fleeing. The darkness you fear is the womb of light." Every tear, every scream, every act of creation is a note in the symphony of becoming. You are not the composer. You are the music. Now, look again at the ocean of shadows. The waves are not hungry. They are reaching. The abyss is watching. What will you whisper into its depths? Share your rebellion, your unflinching questions, your jagged revelations in the comments below. Let these words fracture the illusion of solitude. Subscribe to join the conspiracy of minds who dare to stare into the void, not for answers, but for the raw, trembling truth of what it means to be. The next script will plunge deeper